Welcome back to Book Talk with Cara. On today's episode, I thought I would do something very different from anything I've done so far. I have introduced you to so many of my writing friends over the course of 101 episodes. And then I've introduced you to the story behind many of my books. And I'll come back to that. I still have a bunch of books that I haven't told you about yet. But I thought today I would take a pause in that and introduce you to some of my favorite authors when it comes to books that pop to the top of my to be read pile when they come out. I am a voracious reader. Most years I read between 120 to 135 books. That's in addition to my full-time job and writing, because that's one of the few things I do for me on a daily basis is reading. And so I thought what I would do, I have a stack of books here, and I thought I would just tell you quickly some of my favorite authors. And these are the people that when they have a new book that comes out, it immediately pops up to the top of my pile. I will bounce over to Baker Bookhouse or another indie bookstore and pre-order them. And then I do that like 3 times a year. And it's great because then throughout the year, I have Christmas in my mailbox multiple times. So one book that I recently finished is Bryn and Sebastian Hate Each Other by Bethany Turner. And Bethany Turner writes kind of romantic comedies. This one wasn't quite as much of a comedy, but it still had those flashes of just really fun dialogue and situational comedy. And that's why I love her writing. She also has lots of references to like the 80s and 90s pop culture. So it just makes for kind of fun. And I need that. I tend to focus a lot on kind of the heavier side of life. And so it's really great to have reader or authors I can rely on when I just want to laugh. And speaking of that, there's my really good friend, Pepper Basham, and Positively Penelope is one of her recent books. I have loved this series, but I really enjoy just about everything that Pepper writes. What I love about Positively Penelope, Authentically Izzy, and I Cannot Wait for Loyally Luke is these are partly epistolatory, so told through email and text, but then there's also a part where they just become actual like normal novels. And I was a little reluctant with Authentically Izzy about the whole epistolatory. I'm not always a fan. I did the same thing with Catherine Ray's one that was a take on Daddy Longlegs. I'm forgetting now what that one was called. And then I ended up loving it. And so I think I've decided I need to just recognize that I love that. But her characterization, they're so sweet. They're funny. The voices are so distinctive that even with the text and the emails, I just love them. They're wonderful. And the audiobooks on this series are fantastic. On that note, I've got another one here. Jen Turano is my go-to for historical laugh out loud, like to the point that my husband often will be like, oh, is that your friend who writes those historicals? Because I cannot read her books without literally laughing out loud multiple times in every book. They're normally set during the Gilded Age. They're farces. They are like over the top, and I don't care. I just frankly don't care. I adore them. And they're just fun. And the last few series have had mysteries as well, which just makes them even more fun and delightful. So I highly recommend them. The current series is the Matchmaker books. This one, A Match in the Making, is great. I just read the second one that's coming out in November of 2023, and it is wonderful as well. So really, really highly recommend all of them. Rachel Hauck is another one of my go-to. I adore her royal books, and she hasn't written one of those for a while. Rachel, go back to your royal books. But I love all of hers. She has a great voice and a great way of bringing the supernatural into her books. But I just really, really love her royal ones. There's just something very special about her spiritual fairy tales. So read them. You will love them. They're just wonderful. And so whether you start with Once Upon a Prince or any of these, I don't even know which one of the Royal Wedding series this one is. They're all fantastic and they can really be read in any order. Becky Wade is another one that I love. This book, Falling for You, is from her Bradford Sister Romances. This one has a thread. It's the oldest sister's story, so I think it's the oldest in my family. I just really loved this one, but all of hers are fantastic. I just love them, and I want all of the dresses on all of the covers. I just want them. But the covers are great, but what's inside the stories is fantastic. The characters are amazing. Many of them are witty, but they're deep. They're just, the characterization is great. The storylines are phenomenal. The spiritual threads are great. They're just wonderful. Mary Connealy writes really great Westerns. This one is from her current series. The Laws of Attraction is from her Wyoming series. I'm actually, as I'm recording this, wrapping up the series because I'm reading the one that comes out next. These are great. And all of hers tend to have a really great sense of humor. So you're sensing a theme right now. I love books that make me laugh, but they're good. And this series and the last one tended to have kind of a continuity thread to them, which is great. I like series where you can just pick them up and read them individually. Hers don't tend to be that. They tend to very much build because there is that continuity thread, but they're wonderful. And if you love Westerns, you're going to love Mary's books. And she's from Nebraska, so that makes her phenomenal in and of itself. That alone, drop the mic. She's fantastic. Beth Vogt is one of my dear writing friends. She's from Colorado Springs. This book, dedicated to the one I love, is a standalone novella that she put out this year in 2023. It gave me the feel of like the Dick Van Dyke Show. It's so much fun. It's contemporary, but it's just this witty sitcom type of feel. And it's kind of a love note to the writing world, but it's just really delightful and fun. And I really loved it. And she's written contemporary romance that has a fun feel to it. She's written women's fiction. Her last series was kind of like the March Sisters, like Little Women pulled forward. So she's written lots of different things, but I really love Dedicated to the One I Love. It was just fun and different. I would be remiss if I didn't recommend Colleen Coble. Many of you know she's my mentor. She's the reason that I actually started writing for publication, but she's also one of my favorite romantic mystery writers. She's great. Her current series is the Annie Peterson series, and it's very similar to the Rock Harbor. I could think of the titles. I couldn't think of the title of the series. So it's very similar to the Rock Harbor series. It's a continuation. It follows the same hero and heroine. Very, very good. And it's the way she finds the hook, like the issue, the driving setting is just great. I love them. And the relationships between the family and the key characters is so richly layered and twisty and just fantastic. Every book gets better. And you would think at some point when you're hitting like 50 books, that wouldn't be the case anymore. But Colleen's just phenomenal. Natalie Walters writes really fantastic suspense, romantic suspense. This is the last in her Snap Agency series. At least I think it's the last one. This is kind of it's a made up agency in the federal constellation. It was so good. I loved this series. If you love romantic suspense, I cannot recommend this series highly enough. It was phenomenal. And it's one I'll read again and again because it's just so well done. And it's got an international edge to it without being an actual international thriller series. So I love international thrillers, but if you're not like a Jack Ryan kind of person, you're still going to love it because it's set in the United States, but it has kind of that overfeel. And the characters I just loved them. And Lila and Nick in this book, This Is Blind Trust. Oh my gosh, fantastic. And then Sarah Sundin. I've got to talk about another World War II author. She is masterful with World War II. I have loved every one of her series, but this current one, she's writing these standalones, so they're not really even a series. But these last 3 books have just been on a whole nother level. This one, The Sound of Light, came out earlier in 2023, but it's set in Denmark. And I am ashamed to say, I knew nothing about what happened in Denmark during World War II, but I now want to learn because what she found, and I know she is a meticulous researcher. She makes me look like I don't do any research. Writing a novella collection with her was a treat. But the research she does is just so rich and deep and meticulous that all of her books I just love because I know I'm going to learn something. And so this one was fantastic. But these last 3, there was one in Paris, there was one in Berlin, then this one in Denmark, just phenomenal. When the Leaves Fall, When Twilight Breaks, and then The Sound of Light. Cannot recommend them enough. Do yourself a favor. Even if you're not sure you love World War II, they're all phenomenal. They're just brilliant stories and so well told and just awesome. So I hope that you enjoy that look into some of the books that I love, and more importantly, the authors that I just always am reading with bated breath for their next book. They're amazing, and I just love reading their stories.